Thank you, Mark. Some hospitals across the state are slowly opening to elective surgeries, but the full impact of the pandemic on rural hospitals serving central, northern, and many other areas in Wisconsin is largely unknown. 7 Investigates' Naomi Coles talked to hospital experts around the state on whether rural hospitals are expected to survive massive hits to their bottom line.
My crystal ball has never been quite so cloudy.
Tim Size has worked on behalf of rural hospitals in Wisconsin for 40 years at the Rural Wisconsin Health Cooperative.
Probably the most hours I've worked in a month in the last 20, 30 years.
He says Wisconsin hospitals, especially rural, are in trouble.
Rural hospitals went into this in a weakened condition. The losses are going to be profound.
For the past decade, Wisconsin has been largely spared the plight of rural hospital closures across the nation. But numbers show that their profit margins aren't necessarily ready for a crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic created.
We have a fair number of rural hospitals in our state who have been running negative operating margins statewide. I'd be very happy if we get through this period without any closures. It's hard to imagine there won't be some.
In 2 sweeping pieces of federal legislation, Congress designated a total of $175 billion in hospital funding relief. $10 billion of that is targeted for rural hospitals. For about 6 weeks now, hospitals across Wisconsin have lost 40 to 60% of their revenue through cut elective procedures.
It's a pretty dramatic hit to margins because there's no offsetting expense that goes away as part of it.
But so far, the funding that's been sent to Wisconsin hospitals has been roughly equivalent to 2 weeks' worth of lost revenue.
It's very much appreciated, but it nowhere near covers kind of the economic damage that the pandemic has been causing.
He says the federal government is scrambling to find a fair formula to distribute that money to hospitals because systems nationwide are very different.
They're struggling with the best methodology to deliver the dollars, and so that's why I think it's taking a little bit longer.
That's resulting in furloughs, cut hours, and at times, pay cuts.
That's touchy too because, first of all, they still have to be ready in case a surge does happen. And secondly, even before all this happened, there were workforce shortages, and so you don't want to let good people go.
Hospitals in Wisconsin, including the Aspira system, are slowly reopening to elective procedures.
The longer you delay so-called elective, it's no longer elective.
But a full return to hospital health might be more complicated.
You can't really separate out the economy from the health of the people.
Ultimately, there's no easy answers or a way to predict the future.
And it's going to be case by case, hospital by hospital.
But it's not without notes of hope.
And there's not really a silver bullet to all this, but I think if we all do the right things, I think we'll get through this.
Now, there are other resources available to rural hospitals in addition to things like federal funding. That includes financial reserves, investments, and even rural philanthropy from communities. But the experts I spoke to said that that's tapping on a lot of smaller measures all at once in a way to compensate for a much larger crisis. I'll have more later online at WSAW.com/7investigates. For now, reporting live in Wausau, Naomi Coles for 7 Investigates.